Honorable Mazone, Honorable Swart.
Chair, I'm just very grateful to G9 for coming today to set the record straight. And I was indeed shocked when Mr. Anod Singh said that you had withdrawn your report during that cross-examination. So I'm very grateful that you've come to set the record straight. And you've made it very clear. In words, you've said, Mr. Anod Singh, what he said is not true, is inaccurate, misleading, and a fabrication. So you have said Mr. Anod Singh lied to this committee under oath, and that is very, very important. And we accept what you've said here because there's no reason why you would come and fabricate what was said. We're also grateful for what you've shared on the whole Trillian detail and the procurement process and the lapses that took place, notwithstanding the internal legal, internal financial, middle management, that there seemed to just be a total disregard for internal processes and a continuation with this contract. And I want to share Advocate Ntsebeza's view that one shudders with disbelief that such widespread theft and criminality has taken place. And I'm sure as you've been following this inquiry, you've seen the broader capture of Eskom with the coal contracts, everything. And we see today the challenges with the Optimum mines, all being placed under business rescue, the shocking state, on it, contracts, mines closing down, loss of jobs. But this particularly, that your report is very, very helpful. And again, it follows a pattern of reports like the Denton's report, other reports. As soon as they reached a certain stage, they were curtailed. And I appreciate that you indicated your shock that when you presented your report, your interim findings to the board, within 2 hours, your contract was terminated. But I would suggest that there might have been other reasons besides the important aspect of you indicating, as you should have. I don't think you need to have any regret that you indicated that you're pursuing breaches of fiduciary duty by the board. But I think phone calls were made. I think instructions were obtained from Guptas and Gupta-related people because you suddenly had very serious information about Trillian, and we know the links with Dr. Eric Woods and the Guptas and their associates. And I think that is actually what took place that caused the termination of your contract. What I would like to just ask you, and what we've seen here, and you capture it on page 83, where you say, McKinsey cannot but accept they may have compromised its own business protocols in a manner acquiescing to a model which saw Trillian become a silent partner in its project. And Trillian, through its own seriously flawed ethical or business conduct, saw it, that's Trillian, looting or being allowed to loot Eskom's finances by stealth. And so I share your almost sense of outrage of those invoices being paid, and the last one, 154 million, without any work being done. And we've got the evidence from Bianca Goodson, Ms. Masila Matopo, that said that money should never have been paid. That's from Trillian people themselves. That information is from them themselves. And so this is a very helpful document, the insight, the evidence, and obviously, as our chairperson indicated at the outset, we are continuing our work, notwithstanding that there is a commission of inquiry, and I'm sure you might be called or offer your evidence at a commission of inquiry. My concern now, and I'm glad you've emphasized that you are working with the Hawks and law enforcement agents, but what I found outrageous, and I'm sure you'd like to comment on this, is that you presented your report in August. The board knew what you had said, and they came to this committee and stood a totally different spin on the whole Trillian matter, whilst they knew what you had already been, your findings were here. And I find that totally outrageous, Chair, again. And I would tend to agree with your assertions against Mr. Khoza, who had your interim report and then came to this committee. But what I'd like to ask you, what we found at one stage during our investigations, the Eskom board came and was very keen to recover the funds from McKinsey and Trillian. Then we saw in January, suddenly there was an about turn where Mr. Shaw Maritz suddenly said, no, there's nothing wrong with the contract with McKinsey, and if I tend to understand correctly, with Trillian. Would you agree with that? Obviously, on your document here, there was significant problems with that contract. Would you comment on that, please?
Honorable Swart, in terms of the recovery of the funds from McKinsey, who generously offered to take it back, just as you, we were quite surprised that Eskom had not even gone for that money within a week. They're still trying to legitimize those payments. So, you know, to McKinsey's credit, as you've said before, and I think Honorable Mazzoni said that they at least want to give back that dirty money, because it is dirty money. And the reason that I think, and it's only a personal opinion, and you know, so it's not an expert opinion, is that these crooks that we have out there know that if McKinsey's money is returned, then that 495 million must come back as well. And they know that, you know, most of it is gone. So legally there'll be some pressure for Trillian to pay back. So the fact of the matter is, out of the when McKinsey returns that money, thankfully, the rest of the money with Trillian, I'll be very surprised if you're going to get much of it back.
You indicate on page 129 that one of your recommendations is that G9, and can I just, the gist of this report was given to Eskom in August, I presume. You've added a little bit here and there, but the main, I would assume that what you've said here on page 129, can you just confirm whether that was given to Eskom as part of your contract? Because it's very important to have an understanding of what was before Eskom when they came to Parliament. The board I'm talking about, the board then. Would that be on page 129? Would that have been before them? The top paragraph, the top section, bullets, all those bullets. Because I'd like to just repeat those bullets.
You want me to repeat the bullets?
No, I'm just asking you, was that part of your report that you gave?
No, absolutely. I mean,
I assume that.
90%, if not 95% of this report, as it stands, was in the hands of the Eskom board at that stage. We made 9 copies and delivered it to them the second time when they were having a board meeting. So they would have seen it, and we know that they've deliberated on it internally. But obviously not for the good of the country and Eskom, but what's the best way to cover this up and close it down?
You see, here you say on bullet 1, there was no contract between Eskom and Trillian. There was no contract between McKinsey and Trillian. Suspicion that monies paid to Trillian may have left the country. You already are indicating then that monies may have left the country. The subcontracting of 77% of its invoices without official in Eskom contravenes the prescripts of BBBEE legislation. Trillian may have misrepresented their intentions. That's fraud. And such manipulation and misrepresentation caused Eskom actions to pay monies which Eskom had no legal basis to pay. That's in August already. And we have the board come in here and put in a spin on this, but no action is taken. In fact, your services are then terminated. Is that correct? After that?
That's correct, and I fully confirm that this piece of the report was in their possession. So here again, if they came and put a different spin or said something else, they were lying to you.
And no action. This is something you might have followed in in my involvement in this committee, as well as my questions in Parliament from the Justice Committee perspective, I've said from the word go, from the Public Protector's report, which was referred to the Hawks and the NPA in terms of the Public Protectors Act, there was nothing to prevent both the Hawks and the NPA investigating. Some of these allegations were in the Public Protector's report as well. But we saw no action, notwithstanding your recommendations to institute criminal action then already, no action. The only action we now see is in January that you refer to on that page as well. Is that not also a matter of great concern to you, not only as having done this with your extensive background as an investigator, but as a citizen of South Africa? I'm sure you are outraged by this.
You know, of course we are, but because we are professional forensic investigators, we try to keep the emotion a little out of it. And yes, they had a fiduciary duty to go and register that case in August, September already, and they chose not to. So, you know, it's criminal. I mean, there's nothing else one could say about this entire thing between McKinsey and Trillian.
And I'm sure Advocate Nsebezi would also advise you that once you bring a report like this to directors, they are under an obligation in terms of the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act to act on that investigation and to report it. So by not reporting it and by not taking action, they are, in addition to breaches of the Companies Act for fiduciary duty, the PFMA Act, they're in breach of the Corruption Act for not taking action on your recommendations. Would you be in agreement with that?
Yes, we are.
So it's quite sad that so much information was at the disposal of Eskom, where they could have taken steps to recover and to stop the illegal payments of Trillian. But when you see the bigger picture, those Trillian payments had to be made to benefit certain connected people. And you've exposed it here very well. But the sad part is no action was taken following this excellent recommendation. And I would agree with you. And yes, there has to be a right of reply. And of course, preliminary reports that would come out from our side. But there has been very serious breaches of fiduciary duties here. And I think it's absolutely disgraceful. But I want to just, one aspect here on page 129, where you indicate Eskom may be able to institute civil action. Can I just contextualize that sentence? Was that something you said then, or is that more updated? Eskom may be able to institute civil action against Trillian directors and recover through the asset and forfeiture unit of the Hawks or police, should criminality be suspected and or proven. Was that, would you, it might be an unfair question, I'm just trying to ascertain whether it was in the report then or is it more recent?
No, Honorable Swart, all of this would have been in the reports that we were providing to them at that stage. It was an almost complete report. If there were any changes since then, it would have been minuscule in terms of adding affidavits of witnesses and things. But the findings would have already stood at that point in time. We said to the Audit and Risk Committee at that stage, verbally interacting with them, that they had to go after the money. And we said to them, this case is all about chasing the money. And you know, anybody could tell you that. But they just simply, obviously didn't care.
You see, the issue that I raised when we met with the board earlier, and this is the new board, is once the asset forfeiture unit, which is under the NPA, gets involved, and they've now got a preservation order against McKinsey and Trillian, what is left of Trillian. But once that money is recovered, it doesn't go to Eskom, sadly. It goes to the Criminal Asset Recovery Account, CARA. And I said, because Eskom did not respond to claim that money from McKinsey, 1 billion rand, that they came here and offered us, that money now is going to go to the Criminal Asset Recovery Account, should they recover it. And that's the sad part of this whole debacle, is that you came with excellent investigation with evidence. It was not acted on at that time. And indirectly, Eskom is losing further billions and billions of rands. So I just want to thank you from my side for taking the trouble at cost to come and clarify what I had raised with Mr. Anod Singh. I'll be studying your document very closely, but I just want to acknowledge the incredible work that you have done. And we are very mindful of how reports and investigations were curtailed. But it's a new day, and we hopefully, what you've done here, one will be able to continue with that investigation, and that we will see justice, and that we will see those that are criminally and civilly responsible for the debacle at Eskom be brought to justice. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Swart.